You ever had a person ask you a question that irritated you, or a situation happened to you and you literally had a whole like conversation or argument in your head based on it on that experience or that question? Like, for example, I don't know if it's just me or a black thing, but people say, "You good?" or "How's everything?" Sometimes you take it as a personal attack, like, "Dang, bro, I look like something wrong with me or something." Like, sometimes I feel like for black people, it's hard to be um, positive, and that comes from a person who has a very dark, who was in a very dark, obsessive mind, like me. I um, I perceived everything as the worst case scenario, and I just always assumed the worst in people. So it's like, you ask me, "You good?" I'm like, "Dang, do I look good?" Like, what you trying to make nigga get in their head or something? It's like, instead of blaming them, I need to look at myself and be like, why did that question of pure concern or just a basic question spark and trigger me? Maybe because there is something wrong. And that's my ego's defense mechanism. See, I ain't really got on touch on defense mechanisms yet, but yeah, we got coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms, and sometimes having that anger or that defensive uh dialogue in our head or out loud. Sometimes it's with them. It's kind of like some people are more confrontational, so they may have it out loud, and they may say, honestly, the people who are more confrontational, I feel like, have less anxiety, because a lot of times they get what they're thinking out in the open, and they're more outspoken, and generally they're either proven wrong and that dispels that thought, or they're proven right and it further confirms their thought. So sometimes don't be so afraid of confrontation and just get the thought out there. But maybe think about your delivery. If you have some kind of concern, then address it either with yourself or with that person or situation. Like, what happened to me earlier? I think I was on a freeway and somebody cut me off, and I was just like, going back and forth, like, "Oh my God," just getting PO'd. And I was just like, well, shoot, I do it too. Or I'm like, "Oh no, I did something wrong." And I feel like the person got mad and they kind of sped around me, and then I'm like having this whole full-fledged argument with them. I'm like, "Yeah, like, you don't get, like, you ain't never got the wrong turn, or you just," and I'm sitting here like rationalizing my whole thing because I felt kind of like embarrassed or, uh, uncomfortable and awkward at that moment. Tell me you ain't never just like did something like wrong when you was driving, or like, how you don't let a person go in front of you or something, they done pulled up right next to you. You kind of like looking straight. You don't want to make that eye contact because you feel a little awkward. And it's like you have these dialogues in your head. That's why I like the Insecure, because she really touches on the inner dialogue that people have in their mind when they're going through life. You can that's normal. That's actually kind of healthy, because you're trying to rationalize your thoughts and trying to figure out, is this something that's actually worth me getting riled up about or not? And generally it's not. So I just want to kind of ask you guys, like, is that something that you deal with too? And if so, I mean, maybe take a look into that. And the next time you want to pop off or, have this defense mode and, get upset or get angry, just maybe take it for what it is. And they're just asking you a question. If something triggers you, I always say, triggers are teachers. They're the best teachers because they show you what you need to look at within yourself. It's never the person. It's usually something going on within yourself. Quiet the egos. Need to protect the things you need to work on, because it doesn't want you to realize that it's feeding you a false sense of self. And by proving it wrong, and by actually confronting the mind, either internally in your own personal inner dialogue, or externally by getting it out there, just doing something to break that down, like speaking to somebody if you have a prejudiced thought, or just answering the question like, oh no, I'm good, thanks for asking, though, and just see where it goes from there. Or just be like, hey, do I seem okay, or do I look alright? And they may say, oh yeah, girl, I just be speaking to everybody and just checking on everybody, like that's just me. You're like, oh okay, because I was kind of getting in my head. It's okay to have these confessions sometime and just breaking the ice. These mental health icebreakers is gonna be essential in healing. I really truly believe in what I call vent work, like venting and sharing these stories and being vulnerable at times with people you feel safe with. Realizing that what you're going through, you're definitely not alone, and it's not something that's just out of the abnormal. And it's just like, this is a whole nother video, but the stigma around mental health for Black people, I feel like out of all people, bro, why don't we get to need help? Why don't we get to get therapy or stuff without this stigma of being weak or thrown off, or these things that have been infiltrated in our culture to further, how can I say, further perpetuate the dysfunction of our community, of our culture, because things are being put in our culture that are creating these negative stigmas around getting the help we need. When out of all the oppression that we've gone through, we're definitely not the last people who would need it. We're the main people who would need it, and it's okay. I know a lot of times we like to keep our dysfunction secret because for the sake of the image of how we want our community to look. But I'm not saying go and blast it all across social media, but I'm saying that it is something that you can have these family meetings, these therapy sessions with someone who you trust, with your pastor, with anybody, people who are not judgmental, people who are not trying to put their own personal biases or prejudices into the well-being of you. It is okay, people. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this one. As always, someone who cares, a spiritual activist. Peace, love, light, and healing energies. Be open to receiving them. Keep God first. I love you guys. Peace out.